Hi everyone, TJOmega.org is here at Asylum, Tampa's newest convention, and I am sitting with the man himself. He is vengeance, he is the night, he is Mr. Kevin Conroy. Thank you very much for
Hi,
this.
how are you? Good to meet you.
22 years, and
Yeah.
everyone knows that line. You could not have imagined.
22 years. 91 we started recording, and they started airing in 92. And no one had any idea it was going to last as long as it did. And it was Batman the Animated Series, and then Adventures of Batman and Robin, then the Justice League, and then Batman Beyond, and then now it's the games. And there were some films in the middle, direct-to-video movies. But the games now are huge. Arkham Asylum and Arkham City.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers is making more from games now than from some of their feature films. So it's been just amazing how it's evolved over time. I had no idea it would last this long.
Well, let's begin a little bit with how you started, because you're a theatrical actor.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about the transition between the two, because I know theater work is a very visual medium, whereas you only have your voice to work with when you're doing voice acting. So what is that like for you, making the transition between the two?
Well, the interesting thing about working for Warner Brothers and Andrea Romano, who's the director of this show, is she insists on having everyone there in the room to record together. We'd like to do it as it's almost like a radio play. So there's a lot of theatricality to the event of recording the show. You get to work off the other actors. There's a lot of give and take. You're fed by the other actors, the energy in the room. So in that sense, it's related to my theater background. But you're right, you only have your voice to communicate the story. So it takes a little more, because you can't rely on any visuals to tell the story. You can't use your face, you can't use your body, your gestures, the way people normally do. And yet, if you do too much, it becomes cartoony sounding.
Right.
It sounds theatrical. And audiences have gotten very sophisticated now. And unless you're doing a show that is cartoony, like an Animaniacs or a Pinky and the Brain or something that is really off the wall, unless you're doing that kind of thing, you can't do those crazy voices anymore. It just doesn't sound, the audience is too sophisticated, they won't buy it.
Right.
They want a really dramatic read, they want pathos, they want drama, they want, with a kind of action show like I do, they really want to relate to the guy. But you do only have your voice to tell the story. So you can't just act like you would on stage or as you would in front of a camera. You've got to goose it a little bit. So there's a funny kind of line you have to walk. Some people get it and some people don't. It's so interesting to watch because it's become so popular now to do animated voices. It's become a very popular field that everyone comes in now to the bookings. It used to be primarily confined to voiceover actors who specialized in that world. Now they get everyone does it. You get, anyone from Danny DeVito to
Right.
Donald Sutherland to, all actors are now doing voices. Angelina Jolie, anybody will do a voice in a show, and because it's fun and it's interesting to do. It's just another art form. But you have actors coming in now who don't have a background in doing animated voices, who are really theatrical actors. And often they get it, but often they don't. I've often been there where they'll do reading after reading after reading after reading, and I hear in my ear, they're not changing. And Andrea's trying to get them to go to another place. And I can hear what she's trying to get, but once an actor gets hooked in a groove, it's so hard to get them out of it. And so it's interesting from my perspective to have sat in on so many years of these recordings, to see some theatrical actors make the transition really easily and some not. And I guess it's just a question of experience, doing it enough and getting it. Some people just get it right away and others don't.
Now, you did mention the other shows, Justice League, Batman Beyond, but it's not always the same Batman voice. It has changed from the original to the New Adventures to Justice League.
Well, a little. I mean, he's aged. I mean, especially in Batman Beyond, I'm playing 80-year-old Bruce Wayne. That's a different character. The Batman voice I've tried to keep pretty consistent. I mean, it definitely got darker over time.
Right.
As the show got darker. That was the direction the producers wanted to go in. And I think as I settled into the character, that's the way it went. There was a lot more humor early on.
Right.
There was a lot more color, actually, I think, earlier on. They didn't think it really fit with the tone of the show and the tone of the character. They wanted him to be much darker.
Yeah, because I do remember episodes where Batman plays an April Fool's joke, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, I know.
And it's a great little comedic moment in
I know.
the episode. But
there was more of that earlier on.
Yeah.
And I think they got less comfortable with that. It may have been from feedback from the audience. Maybe people didn't buy into it. I don't know. It was fun for us to do that stuff because it, keeps it interesting. It keeps it, sort of colorful and different colors to play.
Right.
I think the darkness of the story was a direction they decided to go.
Actually, that answers the other one, so that works out. You just discussed that the transition between animated and New Adventure, the move from Fox to Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Visually, you can see how much has changed because it's darker, red skies, much sharper lines. How much was changed behind the scenes?
Well, they actually, the biggest change was for me, was the Bruce Wayne voice, which had much more color and much more, it was much more my own voice. And I had a lot more sarcasm, humor. There was a much bigger distinction between Bruce Wayne and Batman, which for me was fun as an actor. It just was more challenging and it gave me more to play. They decided that the darker palette they were going in when it went to Warner Brothers, it didn't fit the look of the show. So they actually had me re-record some stuff and tone Bruce Wayne down. But other than that, behind the scenes it's always been there's always been, I can't emphasize this enough, Andrea Romano is such a quality director, and Bruce Timm is such a perfectionist as a writer and producer, and Paul Dini was as well, that there's always been an enormous premium put on detail and nuance from the very beginning. It's only gotten richer over time, I think. They'll do a recording over and over and over and over again if they don't feel they're getting just the right amount of emotion in the voice, or if they're getting too much. Pull back, just to get to that right line. It's been a great thing to be a part of because everyone involved in it has cared so much about doing it right. It's made it exasperating at times because you think, oh, wasn't that good enough? I think it was great, and they go, no, do it again. But then when you do it again, you get even better, something even better, and you realize. So that's why I think the fans have reacted so well to it for so many years and over such a great amount of time, is because it was really a good show. They really put great effort into the quality of the show.
Yeah, a lot of people credit that as being where this turn toward the more serious cartoons began.
Absolutely.
It really shows you that you can show a kid a dark series and they will still understand it.
Yeah. No, I had a friend who was working at Disney at the time when we were first doing it, and he was on the production end. And I'll never forget, he called me. He said, "You bastards, Warner Brothers, you've upped the ante on everybody." When this came out, because the standard had gone up so high.
Okay, you mentioned Bruce Wayne before. The one thing I do love about the performance throughout the series is you understand, what a lot don't, I feel, is that the real character is not Bruce Wayne.
Right.
It is Batman. That's who he is.
That was my decision early on, was that the performance isn't Batman. The performance is Bruce Wayne.
Right.
And I think once you make that adjustment, it becomes much easier to play and much more interesting to play. And it's a kind of a psychological approach you can make, and I think a lot of people understand. When you put on a suit to face the world, you're putting on a performance. You're putting on a role that people play. You take off that suit, you go home, and you put on your jeans and your T-shirt, and you're much more yourself.
Right.
That's who Batman is. He's out of the suit. You know, putting on the Batman costume is who he is in his nature. In the cave is who he is in his nature at that point, because of what happened to him in his childhood. That's what he became. That's where he's comfortable. And then he puts on the armor of a two-piece suit to face the world.
I love that. I love that about the character. You got to play, well, you also mentioned Batman Beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Going into Bruce Wayne, and what at the time you'd never think to put Bruce Wayne or Batman as that older figure, very much reliant on, well, at that point, Terry.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about going into that version of Bruce Wayne.
Well, my first reaction was, I'm too young. I'm too young to be playing to be put out to pasture, aren't I? Do you really want to hire a younger actor? Is it really time? But Terry, Will Friedle he's such a great guy, and we developed such a nice friendship. And he's terrific at the role, and so it was fun. It got to be fun. All actors want to stretch. Everybody wants to do something that's a little out of their normal pattern. So playing an 80-year-old guy was really a lot of fun for me. I had less to do because it wasn't a show about me anymore. It was a show about Will's character.
Right.
But it was still fun.
Yeah. In particular, I remember in Justice League where you got to play Batman and Bruce Wayne at the same time. I'm fascinated by these scenes because voice actors are some of the only actors who actually get to play off of themselves.
And Andrea, I asked her if I could do that in real time, which meant not recording all one voice and then all the second voice. It meant recording back and forth the two different voices with myself. And she said, well, okay, we can try it, but then after that, we're going to do one voice and then the other voice, in case you blow it.
Right.
But it really worked. It really worked. It was fun.
There's a mental image where I'm already in a little secluded room talking to myself. Now I'm going to be having a discussion with myself.
Exactly. Exactly. It was fun. I had a blast. I was acting with my favorite actor. Me. I'm kidding.
Well, here goes my last question.
I'm kidding.
Well, thank you very much for this. This has been
Sure.
an absolute pleasure for me.
Good meeting you.
Good meeting
Take
you.
care.
All right, stay tuned, everyone. Asylum's still going on. I've still got a lot more to show you guys, so stay tuned.